What happens when you lie to a judge's face on live television and get caught red-handed? Mr. Davidson, are you telling me under oath that you've never been in contact with the defendant? Judge Frank Caprio's voice cut through the courtroom like a blade. Attorney Michael Davidson froze completely, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, unable to form words as the cameras captured every second of his panic. What happened next would destroy Davidson's 20-year legal career in less than 5 minutes. It was supposed to be a routine traffic court session on, Caught in Providence, the most beloved courtroom show in America. Judge Frank Caprio, known for his compassion and wisdom, was hearing a simple case about illegal parking. Attorney Michael Davidson had arrived representing his client, Maria Santos, who was fighting a $150 parking ticket. Davidson was confident, cocky even, believing this would be easy money against an elderly judge he assumed would be a pushover. Your Honor, Davidson began with that smug smile lawyers perfect in law school, my client was clearly the victim of selective enforcement. She parked in that spot for exactly 3 minutes to help an elderly woman with her groceries. Judge Caprio listened patiently, nodding as Davidson painted his client as a good Samaritan wrongly persecuted by overzealous parking enforcement. But Davidson had no idea that Judge Caprio had already reviewed the complete case file, including surveillance footage that would expose everything. That's a beautiful story, Mr. Davidson, Judge Caprio said with that grandfatherly tone that had made him famous. Very touching. Your client is quite the humanitarian. Davidson beamed, thinking he'd already won. Thank you, Your Honor. My client has always been committed to helping others in her community. Judge Caprio leaned forward slightly, and those who knew him well recognized the subtle change in his demeanor. The compassionate grandfather was transforming into the experienced prosecutor he had been for decades. Mr. Davidson, I have a question for you. Are you telling me under oath that you've never been in contact with the defendant before today? The question hit Davidson like a sledgehammer. His confident smile vanished instantly, replaced by the look of a man who had just realized he'd walked into a trap. Well, Your Honor, I'm not sure what you mean by contact, Davidson stammered, already trying to backtrack. Judge Caprio's eyes narrowed. It's a simple question, Counselor. Have you or have you not had previous contact with Maria Santos before she allegedly committed this parking violation? The courtroom fell silent. The cameras captured every bead of sweat forming on Davidson's forehead as he realized the judge knew something he wasn't supposed to know. But Davidson made the fatal mistake of doubling down on his lie. No, Your Honor. I meant Miss Santos for the first time when she contacted my office about this ticket. This is strictly a professional attorney-client relationship regarding this specific violation. Judge Caprio nodded slowly, the way a chess master nods when his opponent has just walked into checkmate. I see. So you're telling this court, under oath, that you had no prior relationship with the defendant? That's correct, Your Honor, Davidson replied, his voice cracking slightly. Subscribe now and comment what you think happened next, because Judge Caprio was about to deliver a lesson in honesty that would change everything. Judge Caprio reached for a manila folder that had been sitting on his desk throughout the entire proceeding. Davidson's eyes followed the folder like a condemned man watching the executioner prepare the axe. Mr. Davidson, I want you to look at Exhibit A. The bailiff handed Davidson a photograph. The moment Davidson saw it, the color drained completely from his face. His hands began to shake visibly as he held the image. Can you tell the court what you see in that photograph, Counselor? Davidson's mouth moved, but no sound came out. He looked like a man who had just seen his own death warrant. This is... Davidson stammered, but couldn't complete a sentence. That's you and Maria Santos having dinner at Romano's restaurant last Tuesday night, isn't it? Judge Caprio's voice boomed through the courtroom. 5 days before she allegedly committed this parking violation. The courtroom erupted in gasps. The cameras zoomed in on Davidson's face, capturing the exact moment a lawyer's career died on live television. Davidson tried one last desperate lie, Your Honor, I can explain. This was just a coincidental meeting. Stop. Judge Caprio's voice cut through the courtroom like thunder. Mr. Davidson, you are making this worse for yourself with every word. Nobody was prepared for what Judge Caprio revealed next. Mr. Davidson, Maria Santos is your girlfriend of 8 months. You've been living together in the apartment above the restaurant where this photograph was taken. The parking violation occurred directly outside your shared residence, where Ms. Santos parks every single day in a clearly marked no parking zone. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. Davidson looked like he might faint. Maria Santos, sitting in the gallery, had buried her face in her hands. Furthermore, Judge Caprio continued with prosecutorial precision, this is the 4th parking ticket Ms. Santos has received at that exact location. You've been coaching her to fight each ticket by claiming it was a one-time mistake by a good citizen helping others. But Judge Caprio wasn't finished destroying Davidson's lies. Your Honor, Davidson tried to speak, but Judge Caprio raised his hand for silence. The surveillance footage from the restaurant shows you and Ms. Santos planning this exact defense strategy over dinner. We have audio of you telling her exactly what to say, exactly how to act, and exactly how to present herself as an innocent victim. Davidson collapsed into his chair. 20 years of legal practice were crumbling before his eyes, and millions of viewers were watching it happen live. But the most egregious part, Judge Caprio's voice rose with righteous anger, is that you came into my courtroom and lied under oath, not once, not twice, but repeatedly, thinking you could deceive me and the viewers of this show. What Judge Caprio said next would become the most quoted moment in courtroom television history. Judge Caprio stood up, his black robes making him look like an avenging angel of justice. Mr. Davidson, in 40 years on this bench, I have seen every kind of lie, every kind of deception, every kind of manipulation. But rarely have I seen someone lie so boldly, so repeatedly, and so foolishly as you have today. Davidson couldn't even look up. His career, his reputation, everything he had worked for was being systematically destroyed on live television. You didn't just lie to me, sir. You lied to every person watching this show. You attempted to use my courtroom as a stage for your fraud. You turned a simple parking violation into an elaborate deception. The final blow was coming, and everyone could feel it. Mr. Davidson, I am finding you in contempt of court for perjury. I am ordering an immediate investigation into your law practice. I am recommending that the Rhode Island Bar Association review your license to practice law. The courtroom gasped. A contempt citation and bar review meant Davidson's career was effectively over. Furthermore, I am referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for prosecution of perjury and conspiracy to commit fraud. Davidson's head fell into his hands. He was going from lawyer to potential criminal defendant in a matter of minutes. But Judge Caprio wasn't done teaching his lesson in integrity. Mr. Davidson, do you know why I became a judge? Davidson looked up, his eyes red and defeated. I became a judge to serve justice with compassion. To give people second chances when they make honest mistakes. To understand that good people sometimes make bad choices. Judge Caprio's voice softened slightly, showing the humanity that made him beloved by millions. But I also became a judge to protect this courtroom from people who would abuse it. People who think they can lie, cheat, and manipulate their way to victory. The lesson that followed would be remembered by every lawyer who watched it. Sir, if you had simply told me the truth, that your girlfriend regularly parks illegally and you were helping her fight a legitimate ticket, I might have shown leniency. I might have reduced the fine, or even dismissed it with a warning. Davidson realized the magnitude of his mistake. His lies hadn't just destroyed his case, they had destroyed his entire career. But instead, you chose deception. You chose to waste this court's time, to lie under oath, and to attempt fraud on live television. Judge Caprio sat back down, his judgment complete. Mr. Davidson, your girlfriend's parking ticket is upheld. The fine is increased to $500 for abuse of process. You are banned from appearing in my courtroom. And your legal career, sir, is over. The cameras captured Davidson's complete breakdown. 20 years of legal practice ended in 5 minutes of lies. What happened after the cameras stopped rolling shocked everyone even more. Within hours, #LawyerLiesOnTV was trending worldwide. The video of Davidson's meltdown had been viewed over 2 million times before the day ended. The Rhode Island Bar Association announced an emergency review of Davidson's license. 3 of his other clients came forward claiming he had advised them to lie in court as well. Romano's restaurant, where Davidson and Santos had planned their deception, banned them both permanently. The legal community's reaction was swift and brutal. "This is why people hate lawyers," wrote one prominent attorney. "Davidson didn't just embarrass himself, he embarrassed our entire profession." Law schools began using the video as a teaching tool about legal ethics. "This is what happens when you forget that integrity is more important than winning," professors would tell their students. 6 months later, Davidson's law license was permanently revoked. He was convicted of perjury and sentenced to 6 months in jail. Maria Santos received a suspended sentence after cooperating with prosecutors. Davidson's law firm dissolved. His reputation was so toxic that he couldn't find work in any legal capacity. He eventually moved out of state and took a job as a used car salesman. Judge Caprio, meanwhile, became more beloved than ever. The video of him exposing Davidson's lies was shared millions of times, with comments praising his wisdom, integrity, and dedication to justice. "This is what a real judge looks like," wrote one viewer. He gave Davidson every chance to tell the truth, but Davidson chose lies instead. Comment below if you think Judge Caprio was too harsh or if Davidson got what he deserved, because the message this case sent to the legal profession changed everything. Law schools across America began requiring students to watch the Davidson case as part of their ethics curriculum. Bar associations used it in continuing education programs about professional conduct. The case became known as the Davidson Standard, a reminder that lies in court don't just risk cases, they risk careers. Judge Caprio reflected on the case months later in an interview. "I take no pleasure in ending someone's career," he said. But integrity is the foundation of our justice system. When lawyers lie in court, they don't just betray their clients, they betray every citizen who believes in the rule of law. The lesson was simple but powerful: truth matters, integrity cannot be compromised, and justice will always prevail when honest judges face dishonest lawyers. Michael Davidson learned the hardest way possible that some lies are too expensive to tell. In trying to win a $150 parking ticket case, he lost everything that mattered in his professional life. Judge Frank Caprio proved once again why he's America's most respected judge, because he treats everyone with compassion, but never tolerates those who would abuse his courtroom or deceive his viewers. The case ended, but its legacy lives on as a reminder that in Judge Caprio's courtroom, and in life, honesty isn't just the best policy. It's the only policy that matters. But the story didn't end there. The ripple effects of Davidson's downfall continued to spread throughout the legal community. 3 weeks after the broadcast, the American Bar Association issued new guidelines specifically addressing lawyer conduct on televised court proceedings. The Davidson rules required attorneys appearing on court shows to sign ethics waivers acknowledging that perjury would result in immediate bar review. Law enforcement agencies across the country began using the case as a training tool. Police academies showed the video to new recruits as an example of how lies unravel under scrutiny. Davidson thought he was smarter than everyone else, explained Detective Sarah Williams, who used the case in her interrogation training seminars. But Judge Caprio demonstrated that preparation and patience always defeat arrogance and deception. Meanwhile, the public's fascination with the case grew stronger each day. Romano's restaurant, where Davidson and Santos had planned their deception, became an unlikely tourist destination. Visitors would request the exact table where the conspiracy was hatched, taking selfies at what became known as the liar's table. The restaurant owner, Tony Romano, initially tried to downplay the connection, but eventually embraced it. "Listen, I never liked what they did," he told a local reporter, but if people want to come eat at the place where justice was served, I'm not complaining about the business. The legal ramifications extended far beyond Davidson's individual case. Federal prosecutors began investigating Davidson's entire practice history. They discovered a pattern of coaching clients to lie in court dating back nearly a decade. 17 additional cases were overturned due to prosecutorial misconduct linked to Davidson's dishonest practices. Judge Patricia Morrison, who had presided over several of Davidson's previous cases, issued a rare public statement: "Attorney Davidson's systematic deception represents a cancer on our judicial system. Every case he touched must now be reviewed for potential fraud." The psychological impact on Davidson was severe and visible. Former colleagues reported that Davidson had developed severe anxiety and depression following his public humiliation. Dr. Robert Chen, a psychologist specializing in professional burnout, analyzed the case for Psychology Today. Davidson experienced what we call total identity collapse, Dr. Chen wrote. When someone builds their entire self-worth around a professional identity, losing that identity can be psychologically devastating. The public nature of his downfall only amplified the trauma. Davidson's attempts at redemption were met with consistent rejection. He tried to reinvent himself as a motivational speaker, offering talks on learning from failure and the cost of dishonesty. The few organizations that initially booked him quickly canceled after audiences reacted negatively. At a community center in Hartford, Connecticut, Davidson attempted to deliver a speech about second chances. The audience, recognizing him from the viral video, began chanting, "Liar! Liar," until security escorted him out. "I thought people would appreciate my honesty about my mistakes," Davidson later told a friend. "I didn't realize the damage was permanent." Judge Caprio's handling of the case elevated his status to near-legendary proportions. Legal scholars at Harvard Law School invited him to deliver the annual ethics lecture. His speech, titled "Truth as the Foundation of Justice," became required reading in law school curricula nationwide. Judge Caprio didn't just expose one lawyer's lies, said Professor Amanda Richardson. He reminded us that our entire legal system depends on the presumption that officers of the court tell the truth. When that presumption breaks down, everything falls apart. The case sparked a nationwide conversation about lawyer ethics and accountability. The New York Times published a 3-part series examining how Davidson's case reflected broader problems in the legal profession. Reporter Michael Stevens interviewed dozens of attorneys, judges, and legal experts about the culture of deception in courtrooms. "The Davidson case isn't an aberration," Stevens wrote. "It's a symptom of a profession that has forgotten its primary obligation, seeking truth and serving justice, not winning at all costs." Television networks scrambled to capitalize on the public's appetite for courtroom honesty. CBS launched Truth or Consequences, Real Courtroom Justice, explicitly modeled on Judge Caprio's no-nonsense approach. NBC developed Long Island Expressway Detector Court, featuring judges trained to spot deception. None achieved the authentic moral authority that made Judge Caprio's show compelling, but they demonstrated the public's hunger for genuine accountability in the justice system. Davidson's family paid a heavy price for his professional failures. His wife, Jennifer, filed for divorce 6 months after the broadcast, citing irreconcilable differences and public humiliation. Their 2 teenage children faced constant mockery at school. Kids would play the video on their phones during lunch, recalled Susan Matthews, a teacher at Davidson's son's school. "We had to implement specific policies about cyberbullying related to viral videos." Davidson's elderly parents, both retired teachers, moved to Florida to escape the constant recognition and shame in their Rhode Island community. The media coverage extended internationally, making Davidson a global symbol of professional dishonesty. BBC News featured the case in a documentary about American legal ethics. Der Spiegel used it as an example of how social media amplifies professional scandals. Even Al Jazeera covered it as part of a series on justice and accountability in Western democracies. Prison officials noted that Davidson's celebrity status created unique challenges during his incarceration. Other inmates either wanted to befriend him or target him because of his fame, explained Warden Michael Torres. He spent most of his sentence in protective custody for his own safety. Davidson's cellmate for 2 months, a convicted embezzler named Robert Price, later described him as broken, completely broken. He would watch his own video on YouTube every night, like he was torturing himself. Judge Caprio reflected on the case's impact during his retirement ceremony 5 years later. "The Davidson case taught me something important," he said to a packed auditorium. "Sometimes being compassionate means being firm. Sometimes showing mercy means refusing to enable dishonesty." That young lawyer needed someone to stop him before he hurt more people. The case studies continued to proliferate in academic settings. Business schools used it to teach about ethical decision-making under pressure. Communications programs analyzed how lies collapse in real-time media coverage. Even medical schools incorporated it into training about professional integrity. Dr. Lisa Park, who taught medical ethics at Johns Hopkins, told her students, "This case shows what happens when professional arrogance meets moral failure." In medicine, as in law, lives depend on honesty. Davidson's final attempt at public redemption came through a memoir titled The Price of Lies. The book, self-published after every major publisher rejected it, sold fewer than 200 copies. Critics dismissed it as self-serving, and the few readers who purchased it left scathing reviews. "Davidson still doesn't understand what he did wrong," wrote one Amazon reviewer. "He presents himself as a victim of circumstances rather than taking responsibility for his choices." The lasting legacy transformed how Americans viewed courtroom proceedings. Court TV experienced a resurgence in popularity as viewers searched for authentic moments of justice. Judges across the country reported increased public scrutiny of their proceedings, with audience members more alert to potential dishonesty. "People watch us differently now," observed Judge Michael Rodriguez of Phoenix Municipal Court. "They're looking for the next Davidson moment. It's made all of us more careful about how we handle cases." 10 years after the incident, Davidson remained unemployable in any professional capacity. A private investigator hired by a potential employer in 2034 reported, "Mr. Davidson's name is still associated with the biggest legal ethics scandal of the decade. Any organization hiring him would face immediate public relations backlash." Davidson's LinkedIn profile, last updated in 2029, listed his status as seeking opportunities in non-legal fields. He received no responses to his applications. Judge Caprio's wisdom became part of American legal folklore. His most quoted line from the case, "Truth matters, integrity cannot be compromised," was inscribed on courthouse walls from Maine to California. The Rhode Island State House commissioned a plaque featuring the quote for their judicial wing. The case ultimately proved that in an era of viral media, professional integrity isn't just morally important, it's existentially necessary. Michael Davidson learned too late that some mistakes can't be undone, some lies can't be forgotten, and some prices are too high to pay for a moment of deception. Judge Frank Caprio proved that true leadership means having the courage to confront dishonesty, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it destroys someone's life, because protecting the integrity of justice is worth more than protecting the feelings of those who would corrupt it. The gavel had fallen, the cameras had stopped rolling, but the lesson echoed through courtrooms and law schools for years. In Judge Caprio's America, truth isn't negotiable, and dishonesty will always be exposed, no matter how cleverly disguised or confidently presented.